Good morning, sixth grade remote learners. It is Friday, September 18th, and this is your assignment for the day. This is going to be a little bit video heavy, so I might have to make either 2 or even 3 videos for this until I get the unlimited version of Screencastify, but that's okay, bear with me. So today, the question that we're going to look at is how can I make sure I don't plagiarize? For some of you, plagiarism or plagiarize might be a word that you've heard. For others, maybe not so much. But you can see there's a definition here that I pulled from Wikipedia, according to Yale College. But essentially, plagiarism is a type of cheating. And a lot of the time is simply copying and pasting things. But it's when you take somebody else's work and by not giving them credit, you are essentially taking credit that it is your own work, which is obviously something we don't want to do. You know, school has a lot of rules, and you know some of those rules don't necessarily apply to you when you get to college or you get to adulthood. But not plagiarizing is actually something that the consequences become more severe as you get older. You know, if you plagiarize in college, they might ask you to leave and get kicked out. If you plagiarize when you're older, sometimes you get sued, you could get fired, you could get, something with copyright laws and trademark infringements and things like that. So it actually is a serious matter. Now, I don't necessarily mean to scare you because, you know, sometimes mistakes happen when you're in, you know, 5th grade or 6th grade or 7th grade. But it is something, you know, my job as a teacher is to let you know, hey, these are some of the things that we need to avoid. So one of the ways that people tend to plagiarize is by what we call paraphrasing too closely. So paraphrasing too closely, whenever you hear the word paraphrase, I always think of, well, that's when you put something in your own words, right? Put something in your own words. That's great. You're taking a reading, you're taking a lecture, and you're sort of putting it through the filter that is your brain, and then showing how you understand it. So an example would be if someone were to ask you the question, how and when did Wilbur Wright die? So Wilbur Wright was one of the Wright brothers. They were the first ones to fly an airplane back about 115 years ago. So let's say the source said, Wilbur Wright became ill on a business trip to Boston in April 1912. The illness sometimes attributed to eating bad shellfish at a banquet. After returning to Dayton in early May 1912, worn down in mind and body, he fell ill again and was diagnosed with typhoid fever. He lingered on, his symptoms relapsing and remitting for several days. Wilbur died at age 45 at the Wright family home on May 30th. Okay, so that's from Wikipedia entry on the Wright brothers. Now, paraphrasing too closely often takes the form of people picking out certain words and basically putting in synonyms. So let me give you a for instance, right? So if the original source said ill and you put in sick, right? That would be an example of basically just putting in a synonym. But that's paraphrasing too closely, right? Just changing a few words, that's not really putting things in your own voice, all right? Or changing banquet to party. Changing, home to house, right? So there's like about 5 or 6 instances here where I just take a word and I change it to a synonym. That is an example of plagiarism. It's not straight copying and pasting, which is what people think about when they talk about plagiarism, but it is still in the form of plagiarism. So when you paraphrase too closely, that is something you do not want to do. The second example of plagiarism is actually the sort of more classic copying and pasting. So using a source's language without quoting. All right, so you guys know what quotation marks are. In fact, I'll write so if you don't know what quotation marks, right? Those are quotation marks. That means somebody else said that or somebody else wrote that. So you can see here it's pretty clear cut. The source says millions of years ago, the Amazon River once flowed east to west. And if you go down to the student writer, the pretend student writer, it says the Amazon River used to flow much different. It once flowed east to west, emptying the Pacific Ocean. So aside from a few different differences, it pretty much is the exact same thing, which again is what we want to avoid. So simply copying and pasting. Now, if you put it around quotation marks, it's not plagiarism if you put everything in quotation marks, but I'll address that in the second video, which will appear in just a moment.